I stood there for a moment, frozen, staring at that golden card on my chair. The words "single mother" seemed to shine brighter than anything else in the hall. People were already whispering, some hiding their smirks behind champagne glasses. I could feel every eye on me, not because of how I looked, but because of that label. My chest felt tight, my hands shook, but I forced a small smile and walked to my seat like nothing had happened. Inside, I was breaking. I kept telling myself to stay calm, to get through the ceremony for my son. He was sitting near the front with his cousins, laughing and innocent, not knowing what was happening. I didn't want to ruin the day for him. I took a deep breath and looked around. Ethan, my ex-husband, sat at the family table with his new girlfriend. They looked so proud, so happy, pretending like I didn't exist. Hannah, his sister, the bride, was glowing in her white dress. When our eyes met for a moment, she gave me a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. That was when I knew it. She had done this on purpose. Every part of the evening felt like a test of my strength. People came to greet me with fake warmth, saying things like, "It's so good you could still come," or "You're really strong for doing this alone." Each word was dipped in pity. I just nodded, smiled, and sipped my water quietly. I wanted to walk out so many times, but something inside me whispered, "Don't give them the satisfaction." So I stayed, even when my heart felt like it was being crushed. When dinner started, no one sat beside me. The empty chairs on both sides made it look like I was contagious. Every laugh from the main table felt like another slap. I tried to focus on the music, on the flowers, on anything that could distract me from the shame burning in my chest. But I couldn't. I kept thinking about all the years I spent trying to please these people, trying to fit in. And now, they had turned me into a joke. As the night went on, I slipped out quietly before dessert was served. I walked to my car, the cool air brushing against my face. I looked back at the glowing hall one last time. The lights, the music, the laughter, all of it felt so fake. I sat in my car for a long moment, holding back tears. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out that golden card. I stared at the words "single mother" again, but this time, I didn't feel weak. I whispered to myself, if that's all they see me as, I'll make sure they never forget who I really am. I drove away that night not as a broken woman, but as, my name is Olivia Carter. I'm 33 years old and the mother of a sweet 6-year-old boy named Liam. For years, my whole world revolved around my family, my husband, Ethan, our son, and the life we built together. I believed we were happy. We had our small house, our routines, our plans. I never imagined that one day, everything would fall apart so quietly. It started 3 years ago when Ethan began working late, coming home tired and distant. He stopped talking to me the way he used to. I tried to ignore the signs, convincing myself it was just stress from work. But deep down, I knew something had changed. Then one evening, he came home and said he needed space. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding a plate in my hand, frozen. He didn't even look sorry. Within a month, he had packed his things and left. Later, I found out the truth. Ethan had fallen in love with someone else, not a stranger, but someone who was supposed to be family. She was Sabrina, the best friend of his brother's fiancée, Hannah. I couldn't believe it. The betrayal cut deeper because these were people who sat at my dinner table, people I trusted. They all knew. Everyone except me. When the truth came out, it was like a scene from a bad movie. The humiliation, the pity in people's eyes, it all felt unbearable. I didn't scream or fight. I just shut down. I focused on Liam and tried to give him a normal life. I didn't want him to grow up surrounded by bitterness. So I stayed quiet, even when Ethan and Sabrina started showing up at family events together. Even when Hannah pretended like nothing happened. I swallowed my pride and kept my distance, convincing myself that peace was better than confrontation. Then, a few months ago, I received Hannah's wedding invitation. It arrived in a glittery white envelope with gold edges, written in her perfect handwriting. I held it for a long time, unsure what to feel. The woman marrying Ethan's brother, the same woman whose best friend helped destroy my marriage, was asking me to come celebrate her big day. Part of me wanted to tear it apart. But another part of me, the part that still wanted to show grace, decided to go. I told myself it would be fine, that I'd go for Liam's sake, since he loved his uncle. But as the date got closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I didn't trust them, not after everything. Something inside me whispered that this wedding wasn't just about celebration. It felt like a setup, like a test to see if they could still hurt me. And deep down, I think I already knew the answer. I just didn't know how cruel it would get. Someone ready to rebuild her life, stronger, prouder, and unstoppable. The moment I stepped into the wedding hall, I felt it. The air was heavy, like everyone was waiting for something to happen. I tried to smile and blend in, but I could already feel eyes on me. The room looked beautiful, full of flowers and soft lights, but the warmth in the air wasn't meant for me. It was the kind of beauty that hides poison underneath. I walked slowly, holding my small clutch, reminding myself to stay calm, to be polite, and to just get through the day. Ethan was there, sitting confidently beside Sabrina, the woman he had left me for. They were surrounded by his family, laughing like nothing wrong had ever happened. His arm was around her chair, and he didn't even glance in my direction. It was like I had been erased from their lives, like I never existed. Sabrina looked right at me once, that kind of look that says, I won. I pretended not to notice, but my stomach twisted. I hadn't come here to fight. I just wanted to keep my dignity. Then I saw the bride, Hannah. She was stunning in her dress, glowing in a way that only brides do. But her smile wasn't real. When she walked toward me to greet guests, she gave me that kind of hug that feels empty, her voice overly sweet as she said, I'm so glad you could make it, Olivia. I thanked her, but I could feel the insincerity dripping from her words. I knew this kindness was just a mask. When the usher led me to my seat, I followed quietly. I wasn't expecting to be seated with family, but I thought I'd at least be placed among acquaintances. But when I reached my chair, my breath caught in my throat. There it was, a shiny gold name card resting on a plate. In bold, fancy letters, it didn't say Olivia Carter. It said single mother. I froze. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The world around me blurred for a moment. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some silly prank. This was deliberate, a cruel reminder that I didn't belong. People nearby noticed, whispering softly. Some gave me those pitying looks that cut deeper than insults. My face burned, but I sat down anyway, forcing myself to stay composed. I could feel every heartbeat pounding in my ears, but I didn't let a single tear fall. As I looked around, I realized my seat was at the very back of the hall, far from the main tables, almost hidden from view. It was isolation dressed up as formality. I understood the message loud and clear, you're not part of us anymore. I sat still, pretending to focus on the decorations, pretending not to care, but inside, something shifted. They thought this would break me. Instead, it woke something powerful in me. As I sat down, the whispers started right away. I could hear them, even though people tried to pretend they were being discreet. That's Ethan's ex-wife, someone said softly, followed by a low laugh. Another voice added, I heard she came alone. I kept my head straight and pretended not to hear, but each word felt like a pinprick in my chest. The hall was full of music and laughter, yet all I could hear were those quiet, cutting comments. When the photographer walked by, I smiled politely, thinking he'd take a few pictures of the tables. But he hesitated. His camera lowered slightly, and then he turned toward another group, the family table where Ethan and Sabrina were sitting. It was like he didn't want me in any frame that might ruin their perfect wedding album. I felt invisible and exposed at the same time. Then, just as I was trying to keep myself together, Liam came running up to me. His little suit jacket was slightly crooked, and he had that innocent grin that could melt anyone's heart. Mom, can I sit with you? He asked, already climbing onto the chair beside me. For a moment, I felt peace. But before I could even answer, the wedding planner walked over and said sharply, I'm sorry, sweetheart, but children sit with family. The words hit harder than I expected. Family. I wanted to scream that I was his family, his only family. But I just smiled for Liam's sake and told him softly, "It's okay, buddy.
Go sit with them.
I'll be right here." He looked confused, but obeyed. Watching him walk away toward the table where Ethan and Sabrina were sitting broke something inside me. They got to play the happy couple, the proud family, while I sat alone in the back like an unwanted guest. When I finally looked up, my eyes met Ethan's for a split second. Or at least I thought they did. But he turned away almost immediately, pretending to fix his tie. He couldn't even look at me. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was pride. I didn't care anymore. I realized then that the people I once called family had turned me into a show for their entertainment. Every detail of that night, the seat tag, the whispers, the isolation, was part of their plan to humiliate me. I didn't cry. I just sat there quietly, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the flickering candles on the table. Each flame reflected in the glass like a spark of anger inside me. They thought I was weak because I was alone. They thought they could crush me in front of everyone and walk away laughing. But what they didn't know was that humiliation has a strange power. It burns, but it also transforms. That night, as the music played and the laughter filled the hall, I felt something awaken inside me. A calm, steady storm that was waiting for its time to rise. The quiet beginning of revenge I didn't yet know I was capable of. I walked into my small kitchen and set the card on the counter. I didn't sob or scream. I just stood there, breathing, letting the silence do its work. Liam was asleep upstairs, dreaming without a worry, and I told myself I would keep it that way. I folded the card and put it in a drawer where I could see it when I needed to remember why I had to change things. The next morning I made coffee and wrote a list. Not a list of who hurt me, a list of what I needed. A better job, steady income, health insurance, a routine for Liam, and something of my own that no one could take away. I set small deadlines that felt possible, call the community college about evening classes, update my resume, talk to a friend who ran a small business about freelance help. I didn't want dramatic revenge. I wanted to be reliable, respected, and enough. I told myself I would learn one new thing a week. Week 1 was bookkeeping basics I could use for my future. Week 2, I took an online class about running a small business. Week 3, I practiced talking about my skills without shrinking. I opened a savings account in my name and set up an automatic transfer, $50 on payday, then a little more when I could. It wasn't glamorous, but it started to feel like armor. Childcare was the hardest piece. I arranged playdates with neighbors and swapped afternoons with a parent from Liam's class. I also found a local after-school program that would be safe and cheap. It meant long nights of study when Liam slept and early mornings when he woke up bright and hungry. I learned to pack lunches the night before and to set out clothes so our mornings weren't chaotic. Small routines gave us stability, and stability gave me focus. I also built a support circle. Not the people who pretended to care, but a handful of honest friends and an older mentor, Grace, who ran a home-based interior design business. Grace taught me how to write client emails, how to price work, and how to say no. She didn't coddle me. She gave me tasks and held me accountable. When I doubted myself, she reminded me that grit was a muscle. The more I used it, the stronger it got. Slowly, things shifted. I landed a small job helping stage a local real estate listing. It paid less than I wanted, but it was real work and a real reference. I kept learning, kept saving, kept showing up. Each little win, a paid invoice, a positive client message, a night when Liam fell asleep while I read him a chapter from a book we both loved, they stacked up. Anger still flared sometimes, but it was different now. It pushed me to call, plan, practice rather than to shout. The card in my drawer stopped being a brand of shame and became a reminder of a promise I was keeping to myself and to Liam. I would give him a life. The next 2 years became the hardest and most important years of my life. Every day was a test of patience and strength. I started classes at a small community college, taking evening courses after work. Some nights I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open, but I refused to quit. While Liam slept beside me on the couch, I studied design patterns, color theory, and business basics. I learned how to balance invoices, manage time, and speak to clients with confidence. Each lesson gave me a piece of my power back. Money was tight, but I managed. I took small decorating jobs for friends, rearranging their living rooms or helping them pick wall colors. The pay wasn't much, but the experience was worth more. Every good review led to another referral. I printed business cards at home with Olivia Carter interiors in neat gold letters and handed them out wherever I went: coffee shops, daycare centers, and local stores. I didn't have an office, but my small kitchen table became my workspace, filled with sketches, fabric samples, and half-drunk cups of coffee. There were nights when I wanted to give up. The exhaustion felt endless. I'd come home from work, make dinner, bathe Liam, and then sit at my laptop until midnight finishing assignments or answering client emails. But every time I thought about quitting, I remembered that wedding, that gold tag with the words "single mother." It became my fuel. I didn't want revenge through anger anymore. I wanted success that would speak louder than any insult ever could. A year later, I graduated with a degree in interior design. Liam sat in the audience holding a little bouquet of flowers, smiling from ear to ear. When they called my name, I walked across the stage with tears in my eyes. Not because I was sad, but because I had finally proven to myself that I could rebuild from nothing. That night, I promised myself I'd build something bigger. Soon after, I officially launched my design business. The beginning was slow, but I didn't mind. I worked on small projects, cafes, single-room apartments, and small offices. I treated every job like it was my big break. Word started to spread, and soon my designs were being noticed. A local lifestyle magazine reached out to feature my work in their Women in Business issue. Seeing my name in print, Olivia Carter, founder of Carter Interiors, felt unreal. One morning, while dropping Liam at school, a woman stopped me in the parking lot. "You're Olivia Carter, right? I saw your work in the magazine," she said. I smiled, thanking her, but inside, I felt something deeper: pride, calm, and strength. The same people who once whispered about me were now talking about my success. I didn't brag or boast. I just kept moving forward. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. Every long night, every sacrifice, every tear had turned into something real, a life built from the ashes of humiliation, standing tall in quiet victory. Without that sting, and I would do it quietly, one steady step at a time. 2 years after my business took off, I got a message that made me stop in my tracks. It was from Hannah. I hadn't heard from her since that wedding night. Her tone was friendly, almost too sweet. She wrote, "Hey Olivia, I've been following your work. You've really turned things around. We'd love your touch on our new home." For a moment, I just stared at the screen. My first reaction was to laugh. The same woman who had once treated me like I didn't belong now wanted my help to make her house beautiful. I could almost picture her typing that message, probably trying to sound polite while swallowing her pride. Part of me wanted to ignore her, but another part saw it as something more, an opportunity to face everything I had once walked away from. So, I replied simply, "Congratulations on the new home. I'd be happy to discuss the project." When I drove to meet her, I made sure to keep my expression calm and professional. I wore a soft beige blazer and carried my design portfolio. The moment she opened the door, her smile faltered slightly. She looked surprised, not because I came, but because of who I had become. Gone was the quiet, broken woman from her wedding. I stood tall, confident, and completely in control. The house was beautiful, but still under construction. As we walked through the rooms, Hannah talked about wanting a warm but modern style. She tried to act casual, but I noticed the nervous tone in her voice. Every few minutes, she'd mention how proud she was of me, how she always knew I had talent. I listened without reacting, taking notes like any other client meeting. But deep down, I could feel the irony. The same people who once looked down on me now needed my creativity, my time, and my approval. Later, she asked about Liam, saying, "He must be getting so big." I smiled and nodded, keeping things light. I wasn't here for revenge or small talk. I was here to do my job and to show her exactly how far I had come. I explained my process, shared design ideas, and gave her a quote for my services. She blinked when she saw the amount, clearly not expecting it. I didn't flinch or justify it. My work had value, and I didn't owe anyone discounts or explanations. When the meeting ended, she thanked me, still a little uneasy. As I walked to my car, I felt no anger, just quiet satisfaction. The balance had shifted without me needing to say a word. I didn't need to remind her of the wedding or the humiliation. She remembered. And now, she was the one reaching out, hoping for my approval. It wasn't loud or dramatic, but it was powerful, The project started smoothly at first. I treated Hannah and her husband like any other clients, keeping things professional and polite. We met every week to go over progress, color choices, furniture layouts, and final touches. But soon, I started noticing cracks behind their perfect smiles. Hannah seemed distracted, her husband looked constantly stressed, and their conversations hinted at tension they were trying to hide. I didn't ask questions. I just kept doing my job, quietly observing. One afternoon, while I was reviewing the kitchen plans, Hannah's husband sighed and muttered, "We might need to slow things down a bit. Finances are tight right now." He said it casually, but his voice carried frustration. I nodded, pretending not to notice the discomfort. Later, I learned through one of the contractors that their business investment had gone bad. The big house, the fancy cars, the lifestyle, it was all catching up to them. Around the same time, I heard that Ethan and Sabrina weren't doing well either. He had lost his job, and the life they once bragged about was slipping away. I didn't feel joy or pity, just a quiet sense of balance. The people who once mocked me were now facing their own storms. Life had a strange way of settling debts, without my help. When it came time for Hannah to make her next payment, she called me, her tone hesitant. "Olivia, would it be okay if we delayed the transfer just a few weeks? We've had some unexpected expenses." I knew exactly what that meant. I opened my folder, looked at the signed agreement, and kept my voice steady. I understand things can get complicated, but contracts are contracts. Work continues once payments are received. There was silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her pride crumble. After a pause, she said quietly, "Of course. You're right." I thanked her and ended the call, feeling a calm kind of satisfaction. Not revenge, just justice. Years ago, they had laughed at me for struggling as a single mother. Now, they were learning what struggle really felt like. As the weeks passed, the same woman who once dismissed me was calling constantly, asking for updates, apologizing for delays, trying to sound friendly again. I stayed professional every time. No anger, no sarcasm. Just boundaries. The power that once belonged to them now sat firmly in my hands, and I didn't even have to raise my voice to use it. When the final payment came through, I completed the project on time. The house looked stunning, clean lines, warm tones, exactly what they wanted. When Hannah walked through the finished rooms, she said softly, "You really did an incredible job." I smiled politely and replied, "Thank you. I take pride in what I do." She nodded, but I could tell she heard the message behind my words. I left their home that day with my head high, my work complete, and my peace intact. I didn't need to remind her of the past. My success had already done that for me, quietly, beautifully, and perfectly. Full circle moment that only life can write on its own. The day of the final meeting came quietly, without any big emotions or expectations. I had finished the project and was meeting Hannah one last time to walk her through the completed rooms before handing everything over. The house looked perfect, every color balanced, every piece of furniture placed just right. As I stood there waiting for her to arrive, I felt calm, collected, and proud of what I had created. This project wasn't just work, it was proof of how far I had come. When Hannah walked in, she looked different. The confidence she once carried so easily wasn't there anymore. Her eyes darted around the room, admiring the space, but she seemed uneasy. She complimented everything, the lighting, the layout, the decor, but her tone was soft, almost hesitant. I could tell there was something she wanted to say, but didn't know how to begin. After a few minutes of small talk, she finally took a deep breath and said, "Olivia, I need to say something before you go." I nodded, waiting. Her voice shook slightly as she continued, "I've been meaning to apologize for how things went at the wedding. I was immature and thought it was funny at the time. But looking back, I realized it was cruel. You didn't deserve that. For a moment, the room felt still. I could see she meant it, at least partly. But the apology came years late, after the damage had already been done. I looked at her, not with anger, but with the strength of someone who had already healed. I took a slow breath and replied evenly, "You tagged me a single mother like it was an insult. But that label became my strength. I didn't need your seat. I built my own table." She froze, her eyes dropping to the floor. There was no defense she could give, no words that could erase what she had done. The silence that followed was heavy but peaceful. For once, I was the one in control, and I didn't need to raise my voice to prove it. I wasn't the broken woman from that wedding anymore. I was a business owner, a mother, and a woman who had rebuilt her entire life from the ground up. Hannah tried to speak again, but no words came. She just nodded, whispered, "You're right," and walked toward the door. I stayed behind for a moment, taking one last look at the house I had transformed. It felt symbolic, a space once empty, now full of life and beauty, just like me. As I packed up my folder and left, the air outside felt lighter. The apology didn't change the past, but it closed the last open chapter. I didn't walk away with revenge or bitterness. I walked away with peace, the kind that comes from knowing you didn't just survive what they did to you. You rose above it and built something better. A few months after finishing Hannah's house, my business was growing faster than I ever imagined. I was getting more clients, more recommendations, and even small features in local magazines. Every morning when I walked into my office, I felt grateful but also proud. I had built everything from scratch, with hard work, sleepless nights, and the determination to never be looked down on again. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I sat with my laptop, looking at houses online. For years, I had rented small apartments, always putting my son first. But now, things were different. My savings had grown, and for the first time in a long while, I could finally buy a home of my own. A home that truly belonged to us. When I found the right one, it almost felt unreal. A bright, spacious house with large windows and a little garden where Liam could play. I signed the papers, holding back tears. It wasn't just a house. It was a symbol, proof that every setback, every insult, had led me here. Moving day was emotional. Liam ran from room to room, laughing and shouting, "This one's mine," as he picked his new bedroom. I watched him and smiled, feeling a quiet peace inside me. This was what I had worked for. Not revenge, not attention, but stability and happiness for us both. A few days later, as I set up my home office, I opened a small box I had kept for years. Inside was that wedding tag, the one that read "Single Mother" in shiny gold letters. For a long time, it had represented hurt and humiliation. But now it meant something else entirely. It was a reminder of how far I had come. I placed it in a simple frame and hung it on the wall above my desk. Every time I looked at it, I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt pride. It reminded me that I didn't need validation from anyone, not Ethan, not his family, not the people who once whispered behind my back. I had turned their mockery into my motivation. Sometimes when clients visit my office, they notice the frame and ask about it. I just smile and say, "It's a reminder of where I started." I don't tell the full story anymore. I don't need to. My life, my work, and my peace speak louder than words ever could. Ethan and his family faded into the background of my life. I didn't block them, didn't chase them, and didn't care to know what they were doing. They became part of my past, a chapter one had already closed. Now, every morning when sunlight fills my new home, I take a deep breath and smile. The woman they once tried to shame has built a life that shines on its own. No drama, no noise, just quiet success. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud. It's simply living beautifully, with your head held high. And that, more than anything,